Election Day in the U.S. And so, a lot of stuff happening, right? Especially if you're a keen observer of something like the Bitcoin market. And you might be wondering to yourself, what does Election Day have to do with the Bitcoin market? And the real answer is, well, the news doesn't have anything to do with it, right? As you know, if you're trading Bitcoin with the VEPs, which is the volatility, entropy, probabilities, and statistics, that in fact, all the news is, as you should know, is just a big old silly narrative to fill in the blanks between the ads so that the publishers can earn their money from impressions and clicks, views, engagement, things like that. So why am I even talking about it if it's the same as it is every day? Well, partly it's for the new people who don't know about the VEPs, to make sure you understand real market dynamics, how markets actually work. Partly it's to reinforce for those who don't yet know how to do it really well and are learning or beginning to learn. And partly it's to give you some really radical predictions on the day. Because honestly, if you are in fact trading anything like Bitcoin or any asset, do you really care what it's done if you're not in a trade actively? Or do you care what it's about to do? Of course, we know the answer to that. You care what it's going to do. What it has done is moot. You can't change it. You can't go back in time and enter the trade you wish you would have entered if you lost the last one. All you can do is use the leading information to make the most of it and trade properly on the next occurrence of opportunity, which, if you're on low enough time frames, you'll see are plentiful. So what's happening today on Bitcoin that's worth noting for traders? Well, if you look at the daily volatility, you'll see that generally speaking, it's actually looking pretty good compared to yesterday. Well, that is pretty good for the upside. Right? Yesterday was looking good for the downside. It's always looking good one way or the other if you're a trader, because it's a volatile asset. And there's always volatility on some time frame. Sometimes it's low volatility, sometimes medium, sometimes it's high. But there's always volatility. And today there just happens to be decent looking volatility on the daily time frame to the upside. Also on entropy, it's starting to look good to the upside. Even the direction predictor for now has flipped back to the upside. So on the daily, it's set to look pretty decent overall to the upside. Obviously, that is a pretty high time frame. I don't trade daily time frames. That's just too long to wait for a trade to happen in my book. So what about intraday trading? Well, if you look at the central daily range of the VRE, you'll notice that it's pretty tight. Once again, in fact, I think it's a bit tighter than yesterday from what I noticed. And what does that mean? Well, that means it is most probably a trending day. And on very low time frames, we've already seen a number of good trending moves. And even on the 15-minute, you should expect to see more trending moves. And it should be very scalpable for trades. Doesn't matter if they're going up or down. We take the trades according to the probabilities and statistics, not according to how we want it to go. So keep that in mind. Don't get fooled by lagging information, voodoo TA, or news. Don't get fooled by YouTube Jimmy telling you, oh, Bitcoin never goes lower than the low point that it reaches right before an election until the end of the year. During an election year, during a presidential election year, it always goes up from wherever it reaches, whatever low it reached right before an election. Okay, listen, it is possible that that may happen, but that is not a way to trade. Relying on historical patterns will just get you wrecked because, as I often tell you, patterns break, maths don't. So trade the maths, not the patterns. Okay? Beyond that, I'll talk to you about something a little bit on a bigger picture. And that is something I mentioned to you multiple times already. But hopefully it will sink in eventually. Maybe this time, if it didn't already sink with you before, maybe it'll sink in today. Maybe it'll sink in next time. People like Michael Saylor, people like Larry Fink, the companies they run that own well over 1 million Bitcoin. Right? BlackRock apparently owns now more than 1 million Bitcoin that they've accumulated since January of this year when they started selling ETFs. Remember I told you in June, during the first half of the year, the biggest banks, the biggest ETF providers acquired half a million, 1.5 million, maybe 2 million or 2.5 million within a year from the time the ETFs were first launched for Bitcoin in the US. Well, it's been reported that BlackRock has acquired now more than 1 million Bitcoin, making them right up there with Satoshi Nakamoto, the largest holders of Bitcoin. The difference is Satoshi's wallets are inaccessible, as far as we know, because Satoshi has walked away from the Bitcoin scene, and we don't know what happened to Satoshi, and we can therefore presume that those Bitcoins will never be touched, at least for now. BlackRock, on the other hand, does not have an untouchable stack. They are free to touch their stack. Big company, well known. Their Bitcoins aren't just going to disappear and become inaccessible. Same thing with MicroStrategy. They have about 250,000 Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor wants to apparently open some kind of a bank, a Bitcoin-friendly bank that really will just provide traditional banking services to clients and include on top of that Bitcoin services, including custodial services, who he is now saying are a better solution for holding your Bitcoin than holding it yourself. In fact, he's gone so far as to say that people who do want to hold their own Bitcoin are basically anarchists. Well, I disagree entirely with Mr. Michael Saylor about that. And I think it's generally a very bad thing that people who have all the money already and who already own most of the Bitcoin want even more of it. The whole point of Bitcoin was to get away from traditional banking services, to let people have an escape hatch to get away from those services, because those banking services have historically ripped off their own customers. If they don't like a transaction on your account, whether it's inbound or outbound, they'll freeze your account, they'll suspend your account, they'll close your account, and they'll keep your money, because technically it's not your money while they are in custody of it. The whole point of having your own custody on Bitcoin is you don't need to worry about some bank or other middleman being able to hold your Bitcoin and decide whether or not you can access it. And ultimately, that's what a banking service does to a lot of its customers every single day, by the thousands of people whose accounts they shut down globally every single day. So why would you trust them with your Bitcoin? It makes 0 sense. It makes 0 Satoshis either, but it makes no sense. It's a totally crazy way to do that. Guys, give me like a minute here. I need to do something. Let me see if I can actually. Let's see if I can do this. If not, I will. Let's see if I can continue here. I don't know if he's here or not. Yeah, okay, guys, I'm going to be back with you guys in like a couple minutes. It's going to get quiet now and dark. See you soon. I'll be right back. Maybe I'll edit that later. Maybe not. We'll see. But here we go. All right, folks, I'm back. Hopefully that wasn't too long. It was, but it's okay. Anyway, maybe I'll edit that in post. We'll see. The point is, Bitcoin is meant for everybody. Originally, that's what it was designed for. And I've been a strong proponent of that idea since the very beginning. In fact, since before Bitcoin existed, I worked on a number of digital cash products and was working with cryptography to see how that could be done. When Satoshi released the white paper, it was like a godsend in a way, right? It was amazing. When he created the Bitcoin network, turned it on live, and Bitcoin was able to be mined and held and transacted, it was honestly a revolution in finance that very much changed how money works, how an asset can be used to transact values directly between peers with no middleman. And also it could be used to transact other values beyond just money, information, archival information, records, whatever it might be. It was an amazing invention. It remains an amazing invention. And it will probably be considered an amazing invention for a very long time. For those who get it, not for those who think it has no value. Like the Peter Schiffs of the world, who just think, oh, there's no value in Bitcoin, which is just nonsense. Right? If you believe fiat has any value, Bitcoin by far has more value than fiat. But putting that aside, what happened with Bitcoin was the centralization of Bitcoin. And when I mean the centralization of it, I mean not the technology. Yeah, the technology is still decentralized because it's still operated by thousands of nodes all over the world, many of whom are miners. And they don't all have the same agenda, right? But even that, there's a few countries where most of it is being done. And then there's the rest of the world where a lot less of that is being done. A lot of that has to do with the cost of energy, right? And the cost of mining and maintenance and everything else. So Bitcoin as a technology is fairly well decentralized, better than all the other cryptos. The only one that's even close pretty much is Litecoin, because basically every Bitcoin miner worth their weight in salt usually also mines Litecoin, for the very simple reason that Litecoin only has 4 times the max supply of Bitcoin and runs on the exact same code as Bitcoin. In fact, that's why Litecoin was invented. Right? It was to be a test bed for what will eventually be put onto the Bitcoin mainnet. Right? And that was the purpose of Litecoin. That's why Charlie Lee created it. And if you think about it, Litecoin has never been worth more than around 5% of Bitcoin. Back in like 2014, and around 3% or whatever at its height in 2017, during that bull run, so to speak. Right, when Bitcoin went up to 20 grand and Litecoin went up to around whatever it was, a grand or something like that, close to it. And right now, Litecoin is so cheap, you can get slightly more than 1,000 Litecoin for a single Bitcoin. And yet there's only 4 times as many Litecoins as there are Bitcoin, which again, Litecoin has the same exact qualities as Bitcoin in terms of its divisibility, scalability, mobility, uncensorable, peer-to-peer, all of the wonderful qualities that we like about Bitcoin. It's got a public ledger and only has 4 times the max cap, right? So there's 21 million Bitcoin max cap, max supply cap, Well, there's only 84 million max supply cap of Litecoin, only 4 times as many, and yet the price is less than 1/1000th of a Bitcoin. So you can seriously get in to Litecoin, in my opinion, as a very tradable asset. Has plenty of liquidity, especially for retail traders to trade it. And the difference between Bitcoin and Litecoin is that because all the big money has been looking at Bitcoins for so long and has been getting into Bitcoin for so long, that they pretty much sidelined Litecoin for now. I say for now because pretty soon it's going to become more and more evident to the average retail crypto holder that Litecoin is incredibly undervalued and that it has an incredibly bright future, in my opinion. And once people realize that, well, the smart money will have realized it first. Obviously, we realized it earlier than that, and other Litecoin holders realize it earlier than that. But people who are not really into Litecoin right now, they will realize it, and it'll be the smart money that realizes it first. So right now, Bitcoin is owned mostly by whales, and Litecoin is owned mostly by retail. And to me, that's an amazing thing. When I hear Michael Saylor say he hopes that the US government will own most of the Bitcoin in the world, that is just insane to me. It is so counter to the ethos of Bitcoin. It is entirely against the whole point of Bitcoin. To want that a centralized government should own the majority of a decentralized technology, and specifically a decentralized asset like Bitcoin, it's literally against everything that Satoshi had in mind when he created Bitcoin. As it says at the very top of the white paper, an electronic peer-to-peer cash system, right? And it runs on its own network, and it secures itself through its own network. For anybody to want a central government to control most of that, well, first of all, you're killing its value if that ever happens, destroying it completely, right? Sure, whales who have hundreds of thousands of coins, a million coins or more, like BlackRock, and they'll probably own more soon. What happens when everything that exists of a certain type of asset, like let's say diamonds, or rubies, or whatever, emeralds, what happens when a tiny number of people own all of them, and they're the people who already own, they don't own small amounts of them, they own huge chunks, and collectively this tiny number of people compared to the world population is negligible. If 13,000 people or wallet holders own 91% of all the Bitcoin, and they basically are saying to the rest of the humanity, well, here, why don't you buy this incredibly expensive product and fight over the crumbs while we hoard the vast overwhelming majority of it. Suddenly other countries, people in other countries that is, but even other countries will say, well, it doesn't sound so appealing because you guys already own most of it. Fiat, as bad as it is, and it is bad, is way better distributed. And even there, the top 1% own half the wealth, and the top, whatever it is, 15% own like 3/4 of the wealth, or 70% of the wealth. But that still leaves 30% in the bottom 85% of financial holders. So it's a much, much, much better system in terms of distribution of wealth than crypto is. But does that mean that you should avoid crypto and not view it as a potential way to have some kind of financial security in the future? No, it doesn't. There's still great potential upside, even if you have just small pieces. But generally speaking, the distribution of it is nowhere near as good or as fair or as equitable as fiat, which, I mean, that's insane, right? The whole purpose of crypto was to be more equitable and better distributed and distributable in a better way than fiat. But now, since pretty much only whales hold it, it really has very little value left other than, the qualities of the asset. The fact that it's uncensorable, the fact that it's mobile, you can carry it with you across borders very easily. You can have a brain wallet. You just remember your seed phrase, and you don't even have to have a piece of paper as long as you actually remember your seed phrase. Right? Or you can have a hardware wallet that's so tiny nobody will ever notice it. You can cross borders with it. It's much easier to carry, much easier to transmit it. It's scalable, divisible. It's all these great qualities. But again, when it's completely owned, imagine if some person owned all the tulips, right? Or owned all the cars, right? Well, cars are a very useful thing. But if somebody owned every single one of them, people wouldn't necessarily want to buy the cars from the person that owns every one, because that person would probably overvalue them and only sell them at extraordinary prices that people can't afford. It's the same thing with flowers or anything, right? If there's one person or a negligible amount of people that own most of them, and all they'll sell you is derivatives of that product, pieces of paper like an ETF that says this piece of paper is worth, X amount of Bitcoin that you've purchased. You don't actually own the Bitcoin when you buy that. You own a piece of paper, which is why forever I've been saying ETFs are not good for the underlying asset, especially in the case of Bitcoin or even Ethereum. You're just holding a piece of paper. It's like an IOU. And when you cash it out for profit, they don't give you that amount in Bitcoin. They just give you the dollar value or whatever your currency is if you have an ETF from a different country. So ETFs are actually horrible. Are they good for inflows into the banks that buy the underlying and then sell you the ETF? Yeah, they're great for that. Hold on. Walking by some construction here. But are ETFs good for the asset just because the price goes up a little bit? No. In fact, after the initial run up this year, which lasted until middle of March 2024, price didn't go up any further. It's been now 7 months, more, 7.5 months already. Since then, price hasn't gone up to new all-time highs yet, because the people who control most of the Bitcoin know very well how to pump and dump prices, because they use leading information like the VEPs. They use the returns and the means and the volatility and the probabilities and statistics to make sure that they're buying the bottoms of these little dips and selling the tops, and then buying the bottoms again. So they just keep acquiring more and more Bitcoin. And there's less than like 1 million Bitcoin left on the open market. So for example, that's why I said the other day, when people were making comments about Warren Buffett having, released the results of Berkshire
Hathaway for the year, or for the last quarter, or whatever. The last Berkshire Hathaway report that came out showed that the company has now $350 billion in cash. Well, is that good? For Bitcoin, if you were to go all in, right? Does that help the price of Bitcoin? If you were to just suddenly buy $350 billion worth of Bitcoin? Well, the fact is, even if you wanted to, you couldn't, right? There's only maybe 1 million Bitcoin available on the market. 1 million Bitcoin does not currently add up to $350 billion when Bitcoin's entire market cap of nearly 19.5 million Bitcoin, or 19.7, whatever it is, almost 20 million Bitcoin, just a little over 5%, really. When that amount is worth only like 1.4 trillion, how many Bitcoin do you think you can actually get for 350 billion? You can't get anything near 350 billion worth of Bitcoin on the open market, right? That would be like a quarter of, roughly, it would be almost like 5 million Bitcoin or 4.5 million Bitcoin. There aren't 4.5 million Bitcoin available, and there's not going to be anytime soon. There's not 4.5 million of them left to be mined. And the ones that are mined are already owned. Either they're sold immediately by the miners who have to pay electric bills, and they sell them OTC at a premium, usually. And whoever buys them from them, it doesn't mind paying them. So is it good for Bitcoin that massive whales hold most of it, almost all of it? No, it's not good for Bitcoin. Is it good for the price of Bitcoin? No, also, it's not good for the price of Bitcoin. Time has shown that to be the case. My hypothesis, if you want to call it that ETFs would not be good for Bitcoin is true, because it centralizes the ownership, which kills the whole purpose of Bitcoin, which is to be a decentralized currency and a decentralized asset. And now it's not. And it's not going to be anytime soon. Unfortunately. We are in a situation where, hello there. Hi, Jason. Jason Derulo fan. Okay, hi. Is it good for Bitcoin to be so centralized that the tiniest handful of people own basically all of it? And again, I argue that no, it's not. It doesn't mean it's a worthless asset, but its value has greatly decreased in terms of its purpose. I don't care about the price. It's moot. The whole point is not the price. The whole point is to have a decentralized asset that doesn't lock you into the traditional finance system. People have forgotten that because the only thing they care about is price go up. That is not the purpose of crypto. Yes, price. Okay, I am back. Bitcoin has been basically centralized as an asset by people who are so greedy that they don't care if they screw over the entire world. And then they're like teaching, oh, you better get some Bitcoin. Meanwhile, they're buying it all. They're making it unavailable to you and to everybody. They're making it inaccessible to you and everybody. It's kind of disgusting. It's the bonfire of the vanities all over again. They're so wealthy. These are the wealthiest people and wealthiest companies on earth that own everything. They don't need to acquire a single Bitcoin. They would still be super wealthy compared to most people. And yet all they think of is they want more and more and more. Well, there's a finite number of this stuff. If you own more and more and more of it, and nobody else can have any, who do you think is going to want this stuff when nobody can actually have any? It doesn't make any sense. Which is why, for now, I still think that Litecoin is a far better asset, as I've explained, right? There's so little Litecoin compared to many other assets. There's only 4 times as many max cap Litecoin as there are Bitcoin. And we know Bitcoin is extremely rare at 21 million coins max cap. 84 million coins max cap on Litecoin isn't that much more. It's just 4 times. There's barely enough for every millionaire and billionaire on Earth. In fact, I think the number now exceeds that, doesn't it? How many millionaires are there in 2024? Okay. 58 million US dollar millionaires. Okay. So 58 million. Yeah, there's not even enough for 2 Litecoin per millionaire. Like enough for like 1.5 Litecoins per millionaire on Earth. And obviously that includes billionaires, because how many billionaires are there? A few thousand, some number of thousands. There's not even 3,000. There's 2,781 billionaires according to Forbes in 2024. 141 more than last year. So it's a negligible amount compared to the 58 million. So 58 millionaires and billionaires shoveled in there, who own already most of the money on Earth. They don't need Bitcoin. The financial system is not a problem for them. They are not getting their accounts suspended. They have multiple accounts at multiple banks. They have VIP managers making sure a customer or VIPs or VIP customer managers working directly with them. If there's ever a problem, they get a phone call, right? And an email and a text and whatever. It's the average retail person who's getting screwed over by the financial system, for whom Bitcoin was invented. They're not getting the benefit of that anymore. I mean, sure, there's still up to 1 million Bitcoin available on the markets, and there will probably be a regular turnover of Bitcoin that keeps that number relatively stable. But as time goes on, that number keeps dwindling. I remember over the summer that number had dropped to well below 1 million, and then some more of them came back online because people were starting to sell, because people don't know how to trade. So when they saw the prices dropping, they were like getting cold feet, and they were dropping and they were selling out. And who bought those Bitcoins? You know it, whales. But there's still not more than about 1 million or so on the market that have been, reactivated into circulation. And any new Bitcoin that's being mined, like I said, it's either being held by the holders, by the miners who can actually hold it without having to sell it, because they manage their costs very well, or those who have to sell because, well, even if they manage their costs very well, they still got to pay electric bills and warehousing and all of those staff and this other stuff. So the whales are buying everything that's being produced, and in fact, they're buying usually several times more than is being produced, because they're going on, they're going to OTC desks and scraping and getting everything that they can, but they're not buying it from the miners directly and completely, because they see there's not any available, right, from the miners. The miners only make so much in a day. There's only a certain amount being mined every day. It's a steady rate. Every 4 years, that number gets cut in half. There's only so many blocks being mined in an hour or in a day. There's only so many Bitcoins being rewarded per block mined. That's a fixed number, just over 3 now. There's only one halving left where miners will get more than 1 Bitcoin per block. That's in 2028. That'll be the last halving where miners will still be getting more than one Bitcoin per block, right? Once we hit 2032, the number of Bitcoins per block will be less than one. It'll be, I don't know, 3/4 of a Bitcoin or something. Think about that, right? As of 2032, miners will be mining 75 million Satoshis per block. That's it. And it'll just keep getting less and less and less until 2140 or whenever the last Bitcoin is actually mined. And at the current rate of acquisition by the big whales, there's not going to be anything for retail available very soon. And that is going to massively harm Bitcoin's potential in terms of seeing continued high returns over the years. In my opinion, that's a very good thing, that they will shoot themselves in the foot. Why? Because it's not good for the short-term view, and it's certainly not good for the retail holders, because you're going to have this artificial pumping of the price through buy pressure from these big whales who are going to buy and sell pretty much against each other. And they're going to control, as they already do, this market from here on out. So the only thing that could actually help fix that in any way is if the average retail trader says, you know what, I don't want this stuff right now. Whatever I have, I'm not buying more. Let them remedy this by releasing more Bitcoin into the market and not buying it right back up. And not just selling us ETFs or paper equivalents or good faith equivalents. Because once they do that, how is it different than fiat? It's already no different. ETFs are already no different than fiat, right? You're operating on the goodwill of the company to honor the paper that they sold you. Well, what if they suddenly go belly up? Then that paper is worthless, and they've got all the Bitcoin. And you don't know what they're doing with it, but they're certainly not going to pay out every holder in Bitcoin when the promise of the ETF is you get the cash equivalent value when you sell it. Well, what if they run out of cash? Or do you think that there's banks too big to fail? As Michael Saylor said, you should trust the banks that are too big to fail. Really? In 2008, people trusted banks that were too big to fail, and look what happened. All those people who had crappy house, mortgages, home mortgages, they got screwed by the banks who were too big to fail. And what happened to those banksters? Nothing. They got bonuses. The top banksters got bonuses in 2008. They got a massive bailout, almost like $1 trillion. And they could have given that money directly to the homeowners and fixed the entire debt problem right there. But they didn't do that, right? No, God forbid. What will we do instead? We give the money to the banksters who stole the money from the retailers, and we'll pretend like that fixes the problem. All it did was make that problem become a lot worse. Our homes were overvalued in 2008, like massively, like several times overvalued, okay? Are they cheaper now? Oh, but there was a big recession for 2 years, and home prices were cheaper for 2 years. How much cheaper were they? Even if you happened to get some extremely good deal at 90% off, that was temporary. How quickly did the prices go right back up to where they were before? And how much higher are they now? In 2008, the average house was maybe what? 120 grand? Average house. I'm not talking fancy mansions or whatever. The average home in the US was like maybe 100, 120 grand. Now it's like almost $500,000. So it's gone up like 3, 4, 5 times since the recession of 2008. Has your home really increased in value 4 or 5 times? No. What's happened is the federal government has pumped so much money into the system that the dollar has a lot less purchasing power now by like 4 or 5 times than it did in 2008. So you have to sell your house for 4 times as much as you did before. Or you have to pay 4 or 5 times as much as you did before to buy a home. Not because the dollar is worth more, not because the house is worth more. Precisely the opposite. The house is worth less because it's 20 years older, whatever, 16 years older. And the dollar's been cut to ribbons in those 16 years. Think about this. In those 16 years, since the invention of Bitcoin, the dollar's purchasing power against Bitcoin has fallen 99.99%. That's not an error. 99.99% of the dollar's value has disappeared compared to Bitcoin, right? Meaning if you were to spend $1, for $1 worth of Bitcoin in 2008, you get less than 1 penny now worth of Bitcoin for what you would have gotten for $1 in 2008. I'll say it again. If in 2008 you spent $1 on Bitcoin, what you get now for that same amount of Bitcoin, right, is worth less than a penny. The Bitcoin has gone up significantly. The purchasing power of the dollar has fallen, right, dramatically, 99.99%, right? In other words, what you could have bought for a penny in 2008, a penny, now costs you $1. That's 100 times increase in cost in just 16 years, 15 years and 10 months, whatever. Think about how crazy that is. Think about how insane that is. Your US dollar has fallen in value compared to Bitcoin 99.99%. And the banks control most of it, if not all of it. The banks and the big whales, they're all the same. Big governments, all the same. People that have control over your assets and over your freedoms and over your ability to move and over your ability to speak and communicate, they own the entire asset. Just 3% is in the hands of retail holders. 3%. And that 3% includes people who have between 100 and just under 1,000. If you add up the amount of people who have 100 or more Bitcoin, and if you have 100 Bitcoin, that's fantastic. That's amazing. You're better off than 99% of humanity by far. But the people who have 100 or more Bitcoin own not 91% of all the Bitcoin, 95% of all the potential Bitcoin, which means that the retail market does not have 3% of all the remaining Bitcoin. No. The retail market has less than 1% of all the remaining Bitcoin. Less than 1%. That's less than 210,000 Bitcoin for 8 billion people. 8.2. How many people are on Earth already? I think it's 8.2 now. 8.2 billion people. $8.2 billion people. The number of holders that have 100 or more Bitcoin is negligible. It's in the thousands, even if it's 100,000, even if it's a million. What's a million out of 8.2 billion? It's negligible. So let's say 1 million people, and it's not, but let's just say 1 million people have 100 or more Bitcoin. 8.2 billion do not. And the vast majority of people who have less than 100 don't have anywhere near 100. Nowhere near, right? They're lucky if they have a whole Bitcoin. Obviously, most don't have a whole Bitcoin. Most people who have any Bitcoin have, a few $100 here, a few $1,000 there worth of Bitcoin. So they have like 0.0001 Bitcoin or 0.0001 Bitcoin or whatever, if they're lucky. Why? Because the greedy bastards who have all the money decided they want all of this asset because they saw it has a bright future and they decided they want to control it all. Same reason they've always been the same, money protects money. They don't look out for everybody else. They don't have the ethics to keep the future of finance equitable for the people. They have no interest in that, because if the people had equal access to money as the wealthy, think about what that would do to the labor force. Think about what that would do to productivity. Oh no, God forbid, companies will generate less profits for their overlords. Large corporations won't be able to pay their shareholders fat dividends, which only the tiniest percentage of people get, because most people aren't invested in anything because they can't afford it, not because they don't want to. One, they haven't been educated to understand how it works. They don't understand markets, how stocks work, how equities work, nothing. They have no idea. They see stock market price goes up and they cheer, yay, the economy is doing great. How is the economy doing great if the stock market goes up, but you can't put food on your table? That's not a great economy. It's great for the shareholders. It's not great for the average person. The whole point of Bitcoin is to make a financial system that would help the average person. Oh, but Bitcoin's divisible. There's quadrillions of Satoshis. There may be quadrillions of Satoshis, but 95% of them are already owned by people who never need to sell any of them. So there's only 5% of quadrillions of Satoshis left for all of humanity. And population is increasing. There'll be 10 billion people, roughly, by sometime in the 2080s. Almost 10 billion, around 9.7 billion, roughly by 2050. So those quadrillions of Satoshis, which are being further acquired by the wealthy people who are shaking out the hands of the retail traders and retail investors and retail holders, there's not going to even be a quadrillion Satoshis left. And if there's 10 billion people, do the math, out of a quadrillion, well, what's a quadrillion? It's just 1,000 billion. I'm sorry, 1,000 trillion. So you'll be lucky if you have 100,000 Satoshis in the next 10, 15 years. Not that you shouldn't be able to. You should be able to. But the super wealthy have made it impossible for most people to ever attain that. And yet they keep telling you, oh, Bitcoin's the future, blah, blah, blah. Why? They're pumping their own bags. And you're cheering them on. If you're one of the people who reads the news and is like, oh, wow, these rich people are getting into Bitcoin. That's really great. Fantastic. And then you repost their memes. Why do you repost Michael Saylor memes? Frankly, why do you even like them? Like, I even stopped doing that now. So even if I see a really great meme that somebody made for Michael Saylor or that he supposedly made, do you really think he makes his own memes? Come on. I love memes, but I'm not going to, good memes. I'm not going to pump their bags at all. Not even by liking one of their stupid memes. But the only thing I do in response to anything that these guys post is criticize what they're doing and point out the damage they're doing to people. Michael Saylor never needed to get into Bitcoin. He already ran a company that was worth $500 million. Okay, he wanted to have a bigger company. Yay for him. So he got, he could have gotten, I don't know, 10,000 Bitcoin, which is already a huge amount. And that would have been enough. But no. No, he's so smart. He made MicroStrategy this incredible company that beats the market. Again, most people aren't in the market. They don't care about your company's stock. It's irrelevant to their existence. But they'll cheer it on because they've been told by the news media, hey, this wealthy guy owns a bunch of Bitcoin and he says it's the future of money. So you should cheer him on for his smart decision of being a visionary of Bitcoin. What visionary of Bitcoin? He's a guy with a lot of a greed complex who 4 years ago got into Bitcoin after all he saw all of his rich friends getting even wealthier than him because they held a bunch of Bitcoin. And then finally the light, there's the token dropped or the light went off in his brain when he was like, oh, I can make even more money and I can convert my $500 million company probably into a $1 billion or a multi-billion dollar company by buying Bitcoin and basically not doing anything else with my company. And that's exactly what he did. He turned MicroStrategy into a Bitcoin holding company. Whatever else they do is, chump change now compared to their Bitcoin holdings. And again, congratulations to MicroStrategy for making their company worth far more than it was before. But that doesn't help people. And the whole purpose of Bitcoin is to help people. The only people that it helps that MicroStrategy owns a bunch of Bitcoin are MicroStrategy shareholders and employees, I guess. But really just shareholders, because employees, like they always say, you're not getting wealthy off of having a job, right? You might get rich relatively. You might have millions of dollars at the end of your career, but you're not going to become a billionaire or a multi-millionaire by just having a job for any company, right? There are exceptions. I get it. But most people who work for most companies are never going to become super wealthy, right? Unless they're among the very earliest people in a corporation that grows to be multi-billions of dollars over many years. That, this is the fact. And how many companies become multi-billion dollar corporations or even companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Most companies are small or mid-sized businesses. Small businesses make up more than half the companies just in the United States. In other countries, it's even more. So it's, again, maybe this is a long rant, maybe this is a whatever, I don't know. Leave comments, tell me what you think. But as far as I'm concerned, what the wealthy have done to Bitcoin is tear apart at its value, control it, and make you think that's wonderful. They've convinced you, and I say you, I mean the broader retail market that doesn't understand this. They've convinced random people, average people, either to stay away from Bitcoin, keep it at arm's length until they tell you it's time to buy because it's going to be at a high and they'll dump it on you for a price. And then when you buy it, they'll keep driving the price down until you get so nervous that you dump it at a low where they'll be waiting to buy it right back from you at a discount. So they'll acquire even more than they had, because the only people buying at those lows are either smart traders, of which there are very, very few compared to the amount of traders in the world, or huge whales with big bags. As far as other coins available, well, again, like I said, from my point of view, Litecoin is the way to go for alternative cryptos. Now, are there other coins that are also great? I like Solana. I know people dump on it and they say it's not good. It's because it's, a for-profit venture that can rug and whatever. Okay, I'm talking as a trader, not as a crypto enthusiast, even though I think Solana is pretty good, even though it's centralized. So it's not a decentralized technology. But there are some cool things you can do with it in the crypto sense. It's just not a decentralized crypto, so that is a big drawback. Are there other coins that can kind of be interesting? In theory, BNB Smart Chain can be interesting beyond the discount on trading fees. Right? It has NFT type things on it, and you can do other things with it. You can develop software, etc., for it. But and there's millions of other coins. Most other coins, in my opinion, are pure garbage. Most of them are, they're just trying to get a piece of the action. That's all that they're hoping for. If we look at, let's say, CoinMarketCap, biggest coins are Bitcoin and Ethereum, obviously. And Ethereum, people could say, well, Ethereum is decentralized. No, not so much. Not in terms of distribution and holding. The biggest holders of Ethereum are huge banks, huge software companies, huge governments, huge central banks, just like Bitcoin. It's owned by the whales. And they don't even care about the insane fees that they pay per transaction, which most people can't even afford. They don't care because to them, money is just numbers on the screen. Has almost no value. It's just digits on a screen. It's completely meaningless. And besides, Ethereum, in my opinion, it's my opinion. I know it's popular with developers and whatever. The only reason it's popular with developers is because those developers work for those banks. So they have a number of people who work for them who have to code with that stuff as part of their job. It's not popular with developers necessarily because those developers think it's the greatest thing to develop in. No. It's popular with those developers because those developers have a job to do. And that job entails coding stuff for Ethereum. It's actually quite a crap coin. Oh, it's going to be the one computer for the universe, the everything computer. I mean, are you kidding me? How arrogant, how conceited do you have to be to think that your coin is going to be the computer of the world, right? Which was Ethereum's noble ambition 5 years ago. Still, what a joke. I mean, honestly, Vitalik, yeah, he's a smart coder or whatever. But people who look up to that guy and think that he invented something that's so amazing just because it has quote unquote smart contracts. What are smart contracts really? They're just routine operations. What are routine operations actually? They're not smart at all. Any dumb robot can do that. That's what programming is. It's just a slightly more programmable cryptocurrency than Bitcoin in its current state. That's all it is. And it's not even proof of work anymore. It's proof of stake, which you can say was better for the environment. Most Bitcoin, I should say, is perfectly fine for the environment. It's been green for a long time. Okay. And it's becoming more and more green as the cost of green energy relatively comes down compared to traditional energy sources. But even if it doesn't, the amount of energy used to mine Bitcoin is far, far less than the amount of energy used to create and maintain and secure and distribute fiat currency. With all the printing and the paper and the tree chopping and the security and you name it, warehousing, distribution, collection, etc. Bitcoin is nowhere near as costly. So when people say, oh, Bitcoin is like one of the largest energy users of things, compared to even most countries on earth, it's a complete and total lie to say that Bitcoin is causing something of a serious energy crisis. It's just not true. It's just not true. There's thousands of mining companies. There's not millions of mining companies. And even if there were millions of mining companies, the hash rate would change necessary to mine. The difficulty levels would change. those who cannot afford that electric bill would stop mining. That's the whole point of making the difficulty level dynamic and responsive to how many people and how many miners are actually mining Bitcoin. People who don't understand that have no idea how Bitcoin operates. It's that simple. But no, they tell you, they'll scam you, they'll fool you into thinking Bitcoin bad for environment, proof of stake better. Why is proof of stake better? Because Ethereum decided to do it. When Ethereum wasn't proof of stake and before they suggested it, nobody was saying proof of stake is better. They were saying it's an alternative, but it's not better, not more secure. Why do they suddenly think, oh, it's better once Ethereum said we're going to do proof of stake? Because it means more control, centralized control in the hands of Ethereum holders. That's why. And those Ethereum holders, by and large, who have large amounts, are whales. Big holders, huge banks, central banks, governments, people who were mining millions of them before, when they were still mining of Ethereum. It's not a great coin, in my opinion. Yeah, it's technically a decentralized cryptocurrency. Yay, in certain terms of technology. I can say the same thing for Bitcoin. But it is crap in terms of distribution and in terms of fees. It's absolutely a horrendous coin. Now, are there some useful things about it, like NFTs or whatever? Yeah, arguably, if they ever fix the damn transaction fees issue, sure. But is it a great crypto for other people? I don't think so. So what else is on the list? Tether. Well, that's a stable coin. It exists on many chains. BNB. Again, like I said, other than reducing trading fees and having some NFTs and being programmable similar to Ethereum, it's not really super decentralized, but okay. Solana, like I said, I know people will say, well, it's centralized. Yeah, it is. And it doesn't pretend not to be, at least, right? Ethereum kind of pretends not to be, but Ethereum very much is. USDC, another stable coin. And then there's XRP, which is actually relatively well distributed at this point. But even that, huge amounts are held by Ripple Labs and by significant whales. The average retail trader does not hold that many XRP. Lots of banks are getting into it and they're holding a bunch because it's designed for them. Dogecoin, it's a joke, it's a meme, but it's more than that. Really? Do you realize how many Doge there are? Like, seriously, do you realize how many Doge there are? There's presently 19,272,000,000 Doge. I'm sorry, no, that's the circulating supply. The actual, I'm sorry, that's the volume, what I said. The actual circulating supply is 146,662,916,384 Doge. So at 146.7, basically, billion Doge, and the amount that it expands is insane. It really is just a meme coin, whether it has other functionalities at this point or not. So it's not that it can't go up in value. It's just that the amount of Dogecoin that exists, it's okay. If that was the number that it had and it was fixed, arguably fine. But it's not a fixed number, and it keeps going up significantly. So ultimately that may be the big joke, that may be the big winner, because people will say, well, it's still cheap enough to buy at 16 cents. You can get a whole bunch of them. Yeah. Tron, there's 86 billion Tron. Almost 86.5 billion Tron. TRX, which the founder of it called a S-word coin, right? He's been on video, he said that. And he pumps it like crazy, and then he, announces announcements of announcements. Then there's Ton Coin, which is the Telegram coin, which now there's 2.5 billion of them. And that's the whole can of worms. And then there's, after that, that's the top 10 for you, right? After that, there's Cardano. That's a decentralized cryptocurrency. Even that, there's 34 billion Cardano. Fine. You know what? They can have a high circulating supply. The question is, how much are they increasing the supply constantly? And what value does it have? Cardano potentially has huge value in another 5, 10, 15 years. But will it ever actually be perceived as more valuable than the leading networks? I don't know if it'll last another 5 or 10 years. Maybe it will. Probably, because the guy who created it certainly has the funds to do whatever he wants. He can run it for the rest of his life. He's not going to care. It's not going to make him broke. Even if the price of a Cardano goes from 33 cents back down to 0.002 cents, he'll still be wealthy. He's got money. He doesn't care about the cost of the network, really. He's taking his grand old sweet old time. That's fine, but not everybody is going to be interested in a project that takes decades to launch, when the product is just a financial vehicle at the end of the day, and a programmable vehicle. There are other things happening in the world. By the time Cardano, quote unquote, hits its real potential as a product, there's going to be AI coins that do way cooler stuff. Like, much, much cooler. Within 10 years from now, man, that's lifetimes away in the world of crypto. But he's convinced that he can stick it out for another 10 years and then see it become the most valuable asset in the market. Personally, I think that's nuts. But hey, good luck to him. Does that mean that I hold or don't hold any Cardano? Well, I don't say what I hold or don't hold, but have I been known to hold it, at least in the past? Yeah, I have. Do I hold anything today? I don't discuss what I hold. I don't discuss it. Shiba Inu, another meme coin. There's, what is that? 589 trillion Shiba Inu coins. Okay, so a bit of a joke. You go all the way down to number 20 before you get to Litecoin, of which there are 75 million Litecoin. That's it. There's only going to be 84 million Litecoin ever. And again, at $66.91 currently, compared to the price of Bitcoin at $68,747 currently. I'm just looking at CoinMarketCap, so forgive me if it's not the exact price right now on the chart you're looking at. You can literally get more than 1,000 Litecoin for the price of one Bitcoin. The number 20 coin, which has all of the exact same high quality properties as the number one coin, and is still held mostly by retail traders and retail holders and retail investors, has less than 1,000th of the value of a Bitcoin, which is held by whales. You gonna tell me it's not worth 4 1,000ths of a Bitcoin to own 4 Litecoin? Just as an example. Maybe if you have $700 laying around and you buy 10 Litecoin for $669, what happens if that Litecoin goes up in value, not to 3% or 5%? What happens if it goes up to 10%? Less than half of what it should technically be worth, if it should technically be, in an ideal world, a quarter of a Bitcoin. There's only 4 times more Litecoin than Bitcoin. It's the same tech. It runs on the same freaking servers. It's distributed equally, technologically on the same clusters of servers around the world, practically identical, not identical, but very close. People who mine Bitcoin also have computers running Litecoin. Why wouldn't they? And yet, the average retail trader has no idea about Litecoin's qualities. So they don't touch it. They're scared of it. They don't want to be anywhere near it. Oh, it's only worth 1,000th of the price of a Bitcoin. They don't even know that it's based on the same code. They don't even know that Litecoin was created to be a test net for Bitcoin. They don't even know that Charlie Lee, who invented Litecoin, or who created it, because it's really just a fork of Bitcoin, and he increased the transaction rate by 4 and increased the max cap supply rate by 4, right? He increased the blockchain rewards by 4 and increased the max supply by 4. That's the only difference. When he changed the name and the logo. Ooh. That's basically the only difference. Most people have no idea that that's even a fact. And then he told other Litecoin holders when it was high in 2017, 2018, whenever it was, he said, yeah, I'm dumping my Litecoin because I think right now the price is pretty high and I'm going to take profit on it. And a lot of people didn't believe him. And then he proceeded to do exactly what he said. But no, people don't believe the good nature of a cypherpunk or of a cryptography, buff like Charlie Lee. No. God forbid they should listen to that software engineer. They should listen instead to influencers who have no idea about cryptography, let alone cryptocurrencies at their heart, at the code level. They listen to garbage by people who have a lot of money to pay for PR garbage to promote their bags of whatever garbage coin they're promoting, or to promote whatever agenda they're promoting, including people like Michael Saylor, who's really just promoting future Bitcoin services or Bitcoin related services, derivative Bitcoin products in the bank he wants to create. Surprised anyone that Michael Saylor wants to create a bank now that he has tons of Bitcoin? Is anyone really surprised by that? What do you think he was going to do with all that Bitcoin? Just sit on it? Sure, he's got all these employees sitting around. They're just going to sit around and stare at their wallet. No, he's going to turn them into bankers, or he's going to hire more people to run his bank. The MicroStrategy Bitcoin Bank, or whatever they'll call it. Are they going to get people super pumped and super excited about being customers of a bank that will withhold custody over an asset that they should hold themselves in order to not be victimized by another bank? Anyway, this stuff, I can't tell if you could tell. You probably can. This stuff has me not particularly thrilled about the state of the crypto market. And yes, I have been working on projects in the background with some crypto developers to right this situation, to correct it, to improve it. Whenever that becomes more in the sunlight, I will certainly share more about that. I've already shared a whole bunch of the rudimentary concepts of it back in, I think it was July. If you go look at the live streams of mine from July, around the time of the Bitcoin conference that was in Texas, where Michael Saylor and other huge whales spoke, and where he basically announced that he thinks that there'll be several companies who hold millions of Bitcoin, countries, I mean, who hold millions of Bitcoin. And I said, that's a terrible thing. And it was similar to this rant. And I explained to you what I intend to do. Anyway, we'll see whether that happens or not. Is right now neither here nor there. What does matter is that if you want to learn about the crypto space, do yourself a favor. Go read the Bitcoin white paper if you've never done it. All right. It's on the bitcoin.org website. Just Google Bitcoin white paper, and it's like at, I think, bitcoin.org/white paper or something like that, or /PDF/white paper, something like that. Just Google Bitcoin white paper. Don't go on any random links. Go to the one that's at bitcoin.org, which is like the official Bitcoin website. Okay. Even though there's no really official Bitcoin website. It's the real website of information about Bitcoin. That's where the actual white paper is stored and published officially. And I've got it on a bunch of my sites and stuff like that too, but I'm not even going to tell you what those are. Just go get it from the Bitcoin site. Go read it there. Learn from that. Start there. If you have questions, you can ask here in the comments. I'll certainly answer questions about crypto and Bitcoin and stuff like that. So thanks again to anybody who happens to be watching. There's probably nobody watching this, but if you are, good on you. I hope you like the video and click the subscribe thing and leave a comment. Most importantly, let me know what you think. Do you want me to see, should I do super long streams again? Should I do more of those? I know people in the streaming world, it's different. Sometimes people like really long streams. Sometimes they like relatively short ones. And in the YouTube vertical videos, they like short videos, but whatever. When I'm walking and talking, or walking, talking, and then sitting down again, hey, sometimes it's vertical. There you go. Anyway, folks, that's gonna do it for now. Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you in the Alpha Trading Discord, starting at 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. You can go there. Just go to alphatradinghq.com/Discord, where you can learn for free, completely free, to learn a better way to trade. No risk, no money on the table, nothing. You get free indicators, a free chart, free access to educational information, free access to a chat full of VEPS traders who trade with those tools. You can join the live streams with your voice, not just by text chat. It's unlike any other live streaming experience about crypto and trading and all that stuff that you'll ever watch, because they're all shilling you something. They're all telling you, click my affiliate link or all this other garbage. Buy my course. We're not. Okay. The tools we have for sale, yay, they're for serious traders. If you're not a serious trader, I don't recommend you buy them. Learn with the free tools first. You can buy them, but I don't recommend it, and neither do any of my fellow co-founders at Alpha Trading. We always tell you, use the free tools. That's why they exist. But some people insist on buying the paid stuff along with getting the free tools, or instead of, which that I don't understand. Why would you get the paid tools and not at least get the free tools, which are free? And one of those free tools, in fact, two of them, but really one of them is not even included in the paid subscription. You have to get it for free. So check it out. Go get the free tools. Learn for free, zero cost. Don't put money on any trades, nothing. Learn how to trade first, then practice with fake money trades, virtual trades. Use virtual trade accounts on exchanges that will give you like an account full of $100,000 of fake money to practice with.
see how good the tools are. And you'll see for yourself why it's a no-brainer to use our tools and our methods, right? You can ask all the questions you want. You can take as long as you want. We will never pressure you to buy the stuff, ever, because we don't care if you buy the stuff. Because we trade with these tools. We're not in the business of selling indicators. We're giving them to you for free. Like I said, the only reason we even charge for any of them is because our developers deserve some kind of a reward. Our team deserves some kind of a reward for all the effort they put into it. But it's not like we make a living off of, you know, the few crumbs that come in from the very small amount of people who actually pay for our tools. And the reason only a few people pay for, a small number of people pay for our tools, is because people don't want to learn. They want signals. They want copy trading. We don't do that. We teach people how to trade better. If you want to learn how to trade better, that's what you do. You go to Alpha Trading. If you just want to be a gambler and use garbage tools or follow garbage tool users, have at it. Go have fun. You know, we like taking your money in the trades that we win against you. I don't mind. Anyway, those are my thoughts. See you guys. Happy days. Oh, should I do the hand thing? Is that still a thing? I don't know why that's a thing. Whoever